The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on Beyond the Headlines are not necessarily those of management, ownership, or production unit of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirety without express written permission of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2021.
Coming up tonight, Tonic Williams Darling Highway, the scene of a gruesome accident late yesterday and unfolded well into the evening yesterday. In fact, still this evening, that scene is live and unfolding. It took investigators and rescue teams long into yesterday, last night, as well as right now, to try and discover the remains of a man crushed as he was working on quarry. We will get to the bottom of that in a report coming up. Also tonight, nurses of the Bahamas Nurses Union say they will not return to work until they get some definitive answers. And what's happening with Rosewood Exuma? Residents are asking and want answers as they say the resort provides the hope the economies on the Exuma Keys desperately need. It's all straight ahead this evening. This is Beyond the Headlines. Good evening. I'm Shanique Miller. It's great to have you along this evening. A construction worker was crushed to death in a tragic industrial accident Thursday evening after a hillside collapsed, burying an excavator beneath tons of rock and debris. Devontae Hanna was on the scene last night and again today and has the story.
Heavy equipment carving into massive boulders of limestone as teams desperately search to find any semblance of life of a man who was trapped in rubble. The chaotic scene pulling dozens out in frigid temperatures, hoping to locate the 51-year-old excavator buried under tons of dust and rocks. Though the incident reportedly came in earlier in the day, police say they only got the call around 6 p.m.
We are actively investigating this matter. As you see, we have our crime scene officers, our investigators are on scene now.
Rescue teams racing against a ticking clock, plowing through unstable ground in the cold. The victim's brother holding his head in despair as he clawed his way through the rock, never leaving his own excavator, with emergency teams on standby to assist. But as time went on, reality quickly began to set in. In a blood-stained shirt, Andrew Pinder, a firefighter from Abaco, used a shovel to gingerly clear the area around the machine, giving thousands watching a first glimmer of hope. He says, like many, he learned of the accident on the Eyewitness News live stream, hoping for a different result and fully aware that every second mattered.
That he was stuck in an air void and we was going to find him alive because it has happened before. It'll completely enclose the machine and it'll still be an air pocket, but unfortunately in this situation it actually crushed the cab.
And just to show you how massive some of these boulders are, I'm about 6'3" and as you can see, this one is about twice my height. These excavators spending hours moving tirelessly and carefully to ensure that they could find their friend and their co-worker, and once they did the unthinkable thing.
We went in with the hand tools because we knew that's where he should be, and once we went in with the hand tools, we was able to see some sign that he was in the cab, and that's when you saw me start to peel the cab open.
Though a cell phone and a driver's license were located, minimal resources and fading visibility ultimately made their efforts become increasingly difficult. After a harrowing search, teams are still working to pull the crumbled excavator from dust. They were only able to locate the man's torso, and tonight, many are still trying to piece together what happened. But for Pinder, there was only one way to describe it.
It's a freak accident. When you're dealing with earth removal and stuff, you're never sure. One false tooth mark at the wrong place could cause a mountain to fall down.
As officials continue their work, their next steps still remain unclear as the ground remains unstable and the air filled with moisture. Now, of course, for family members, this devastating scene can only be described as a freak accident here tonight. And of course, the investigation still continues. Devontae Hanna, Eyewitness News.
It's quite the scene. So many people were so disturbed last evening and, of course, well into this evening as well. We're going to get in right there with my Hot Topics panelists. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. Leslie Miller, and joining us via Zoom, Michael Turnquest and Howard Johnson. Gentlemen, good evening to all of you.
Good evening to you, Shanique. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, Bahamas.
Good evening, Shanique, and good evening, Bahamas. Pleasure.
Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, colleagues, and good evening, Bahamas.
Good evening to each of you once again. Listen, it's very, very sad. Leslie, I wanna begin with you really, because even upward to late this afternoon, you were speaking with police and going, trying to provide as much help and assistance and information as you can. I know that this was nothing to do with you. It's not a project that you were involved with, but what do you know?
Yesterday afternoon, the whole week, in fact, there was a gentleman there, just not cutting fill, but walking the fill. They call it walking. When the fills come down, it's heavy rocks, and then the guys have to cut the fill and walk it to make it into fine fill. And as he was doing that now, unfortunately, when those guys began doing their work, the people next door, the Higgs, who's been a pain in everybody's, you know what, for the last 50 years, began to come there every morning and throw fill on top of the people's equipment. They'll go on the top of the hill and just push fill down. Now, in fact, I just left the director of environmental, the lady, she was there with her team. And it appears that from the constant erosion of water going through some of the veins in the rock, and people going up there with heavy equipment and pushing back, it weakened the baseline of the rock. So a gentleman was there yesterday. I got a call yesterday around about 4:15 from a gentleman in charge of the operation. He said, Leslie, come out right away. So I went in the back. And I didn't know what was going on. All you saw was a whole hill came down. Enough hill to full at least 100 truckloads of fill.
Oh, man.
That's how much fill came down from the hilltop, just right on the ground. So he said he sent his guy there. He had one man that was just walking the fill. And he said he called the guy. I think he was taking him lunch or something. He said, come in there. But he got no answer. So around about 2:30, he sent one of his men there saying, tell him he coming to pick up the machine. There's only one machine there because they wasn't cutting. And when the fellow went there, the fellow said, there's no machine here. I said, what you mean there's no machine? He said, the fellow's on the machine. I said, no, boss, I don't see no machine. He says, that's impossible. So the fellow didn't. So the fellow said, but a lot of fill on the ground. So he said, fill on the ground? We don't have no fill on the ground, except when he was walking. Mm-hmm. He said, no, boss, a lot of boulders. You better come. And when he went there, he called me about 4:15 and said, just come in the back. And I went in the back. And the place was like, you can't imagine it. In fact, the personnel from environment couldn't believe it. It's something that we have never seen before. No one who's in that business has ever seen it before. The hill just dropped. And then they showed me some of the veins on the hill where the water had penetrated. It's 2 sections, she says. And that's
when you
those
say
veins.
Water, you mean like constant rainwater?
Yeah,
that's what you mean.
And it gets weakened. And the top layer is just there sitting. And because of the constant pushing from the people next door, pushing all that fill off constantly, and the dirt and everything else, they believe that had a lot to do with the fill falling on this guy. Now, I immediately called the police, all of us, because he had called the police first, the guy who's in charge, and the ambulance and everybody else. And within, I got to give everybody thanks. Within half hour, everybody who needed to be there was there. The fire engine, the ambulance, the police, and we also want to thank Mr. Jimmy Moscow. He sent all of his equipment Within an hour, they had about 7 different heavy equipment there to assist in that operation. That went on from about 5:30 up until 2:30, 3 o'clock this morning. And they were still unable to get his body out. Because what happened, the rocks fell on the machine and crushed it to the bottom of the land that it was on. And when they tried to clear the rocks and lift the machine out, the other rocks started tumbling down. I talk about rocks
and those
weighing
are huge.
up to 2,000 pounds. You can go there now, you can see it. It was just a total disaster. We're so sorry for the family for losing a life. And ironically, his brother was the one on one of Jimmy machine last night who had to try to pull his brother out. So you can imagine his feelings trying to get his brother. And we thought it was some life because when someone went around the rocks that was already there, they heard the fellow tried to start the machine, but it was false hope. One of the top men for Moscow and those said, no, that was just air coming out of the machine, and because the machine was still crumbling from the rocks. And as the rocks press on it, you hear things that you really don't believe. And it's unfortunate, the police are still out there now. And they're still waiting, trying to get his body out of the wreckage.
That's going to take quite some time,
And that's going to probably take at least until Monday, around the clock. Until about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Gentlemen
very sad.
and Leslie, I don't want to
Apologies
appear.
to his family.
Yeah, I don't want to appear insensitive at all. I just want to ask about safety. I know this is something we've done for decades. I know this is perhaps something even that gentleman has performed. I just want to know, how do we do it differently? Because it's not happened before, but obviously we see how it's always been done is not the most safest path to collecting quarry or processing it or whatever it's done, because this accident that happened yesterday.
You know, Shanique, I always tell people, you know, I'm kind of in that business myself. It's just more so dealing with marinas and that type of thing. You know, when dealing with any type of machinery, I mean, heavy equipment, it's a dangerous business.
Very
I think
dangerous.
all around.
Very.
You know, I don't care whether it's you're cutting hills or you're dredging marina. You know, there's a possibility of a crane excavator falling into the water, somebody getting trapped. You know, I wouldn't say there's a 100% safe way to do any type of cutting of hills. You know, I've always looked at East Street. You know, you look at that hill that was cut, and there's a house sitting right on the borderline of that hill.
My constituents.
And it's sitting directly. I'm talking about they must almost clean the wall, the hill directly with the person's boundary of their wall. And I look up there all the time.
That's what happened.
Yeah, and you know it's dangerous. But you know we're not talking about solid rock. You're talking about fill. That's something that's porous. You know, these are things that can happen in this particular type of industry. I mean, if a tractor can just dig it down and walk it and turn it into fine fill, you know, it's telling you that you're not dealing with solid rock. You know, solid rock is something that no matter how much of a crane goes over it and walk it down, you know, you still end up with rock at the end of the day. So, you know, there's no safe way. It's just making sure you have safety protocols, whether it be helmets, things of that sort. But something like what you're dealing with, cutting down hills, you know, it's not really, it's called it, you know, 100% safe to say, okay, we have all the everything in place to stop anything like this happening.
Yeah, Shanique, I first of all want to say my condolences to the family of the deceased. I know that has to be very difficult to deal with. Not only finding out under these tragic circumstances that the life of a family member was taken, but like Leslie said, to have the gentleman's body still at the site right now. So I know that is even adding to the tremendous trauma the family is feeling right now. So my condolences to them. And when I first saw the story, I wondered about that safety. Like, you know, we're talking about the cut in the rock and it being porous. I'm wondering not only about the safety measures from the employer perspective, but from a regulator perspective in the government. And I wanted to know, you know, here in the United States, we have OSHA, you know, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration that's responsible for workplace safety. And I tried to do some research and see if we had something like that in the Bahamas,
Yes.
and what I was able to uncover was that in the Department of Labor, there's a labor inspection,
Department of Environmental Health.
labor inspection section in the Department of Environmental Health
Yes,
that
yes.
are responsible for this. And
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder, a lot of times we see remedial measures taken to right-size things when something of this magnitude happens. But we have to start looking at the prevention. How could this have been prevented? If we had inspectors on these sites like this, frequently or occasionally checking up on these sites and making sure that things are in place, maybe this and other tragic events could have been averted. These are the loftier goals. We say in our national anthem, we sing these things, but these goals, they not only have to be aspirational, but when we talk about our common loftier goals, these are the things that we need to start improving upon now and elevating our standards and making better so that we can save the lives of our people.
Howard, to your point, just to let you know, there are, so the Department of Environmental Health, which is called DEP, they do most time outsource this stuff to companies that so-called like Braun. Braun is a company that does a lot of the environmental, and they sit actually at your site, whether it be dredging, and you pay them a daily fee for having someone out there monitoring whether it be environmental impacts, whether it be oil.
That's on the ocean, that is. That's in the water.
So no, it seems as though what Michael is saying, that's whether it's in the marine or water or on land. So then, but Michael, it seems
they sit on land. They sit on land for environmental projects like cutting marinas, and they sit there, they make their reports, and they submit them daily. They also advise on hazards, whether it be making sure safety equipment is being worn daily. This is what happens on sites that I've been on or that I've all with today.
But it seems as though, Michael, that you, the developer, would have to contact them for them to come there, yes?
No.
You get a license from them. They give you the permit.
You have to get a license first.
You got to get a permit.
For cutting hills and things of that sort, you get permits. Now, when environmental health go and they give you these permits, they come with stipulations whether it be you need to have an outside, they're going to bring in an outside contractor, they need to be on site, whether it be daily or they come and do their studies every week or every day. But sometimes they put somebody there to be there daily, and the developer burdens the cost, of course, but at the same time, the inspections and safety things are actually, and they ensure that these things are in place, doing, the daily, I would say, operations of your operation.
Right, and what's unfortunate...
In this case, the inspectors normally will come every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
And assess the situation and tell you what remedies you should take. But bear in mind that they were not cutting fill because of the pores of the rock on top, and people interfering with their weight, pushing fill over on top of them was the problem. You see, there's this situation where the police needs to get involved. And over the last 50 years, everybody's been harassed by these people, and nothing is done. The police tell you it's a civil matter.
So Leslie, this has been a habit for many years, you're saying.
Many years.
And people
Bahamas Food Services.
People like you have complained about it to no avail.
No avail.
Well,
the police come, they say civil matter. Goodbye.
Guess what's going to happen moving forward? They'll now put more stringent measures
That's
in
what
place.
the director says she's going to do next week.
Well, but that's what she can do.
Yeah,
and we're obviously talking about Dr. Rihanna Neely.
Yes.
But
yes.
Guess what? A life has now been lost because you just say, well, go to this one and get that done. Go to that one and get that done.
And what is interesting, they will come out daily and push the fill down on the men who are working, right? But today, never open. The place closed today. Nobody open. All the gates closed.
Dr. Rihanna, perhaps you need to revisit and fines and other, along with more stringent measures and laws and enforcement, perhaps fines as well should accompany the crackdown that your department will do. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the family.
Please.
We certainly, of course, the nation was shaken by this, and so thoughts and prayers with the family. Beyond the Headlines is backward after this.
January means business.
It's a Holy Frosty Christmas, and Wendy's and Coke is bringing the cheer. This year, when you upgrade any Wendy's combo to a large, you can instantly win big with the Upgrade and Win Christmas giveaway. We're talking travel gift cards, gadgets, holiday treats, and prizes that make your Holy Frosty Christmas shine. Just upgrade your favorite lunch combo, scan the QR code on your receipt to enter, and let the holiday magic begin. Enjoy great tasting food and win big this Christmas with Wendy's and Coca-Cola's Upgrade and Win. Rules and restrictions apply.
Okay, guys, this is what we doing today. We training for the bounce back. This 150K payday. Y'all ready? Yes. Y'all sweating today. Give me a 2 ball. 10. Give me another 2 ball. 15. You spin, right? It don't look so. There's 10K. Name these games after me. Food Dragon.
Food Dragon.
Cinema Classic.
Cinema Classic.
Yeah. Put that parlay in. Put that in. You know, Jalen Brunson disappointed us last time. You want to walk for this or you want to run for this? Good pace. Good pace. Not too much water. Put it down. Let's go.
It's the Bounce Back 150K payday. Big wins for 10 weeks straight. 15K every week. 10K to a lucky winner. Visit islandluck.com for more info. Island Luck. Winners live here.
This segment is brought to you by EV Motors Fleet Sales Division. For 2026 commercial vehicles, call 821-2403 today.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. Continuing this evening, nurses of the Bahamas Nurses Union, you all know that they have been out sick since earlier this week. Well, tonight they are taking a very hard stance. They say they will not return to work after pulling their services this week until the issue of pay is satisfactorily addressed. We get the update from Jose Etienne and then we come back and discuss.
Until they get their monies, they will not be going to work.
Quite a bitter reality that a nation with an already crumbling healthcare system has to face as scores of fed-up nurses at the Princess Margaret Hospital and the Rand Memorial Hospital in Grand Bahama prolong a sick-out that's directly linked to unpaid overtime funds. Now, Public Hospital Authority officials assured that workers would be paid after revealing that Cabinet approved the outstanding monies that are now being processed. But Bahamas Nurses Union President Muriel Lightburn contends that her nurses are sticking to their guns until the check clears.
We don't trust them. They don't trust PHA simply because they've been promising to do things and have not yet done it.
She says betrayal has become the bedrock of her distrust as other issues aside from overtime pay linger unchecked.
We've had incidents of public holidays not being paid, allowances not being paid. Some of our nurses in PHA who would have had their promotions from last year and still awaiting compensation for those promotions.
Adding insult to injury, Lightburn says, are conversations with government officials that seemed to be a waste of time. And she's quite concerned that assertions from an administration that trumpets its commitment to healthcare workers are just loud but not felt.
Quite frankly, as the president, I feel it's a matter of disrespect, because if I'm saying to you this is what is needed and you're agreeing to these things while we're at the table and then 2 and 3 years later nothing is done, I don't think that we should be running behind nobody to say, this is what we need, this is what has to be done. And yeah, we to the table, yeah. We're going to sort this out,
At present, critical units that have been crippled due to staffing woes are surgical, medical, ENT, eye, and specialty clinics. But the added issue here is nurses who feel torn between professional conscience and personal survival.
We are concerned about those persons who are laying in those hospital beds today. We are concerned about those persons who have to go to the ER today. We are concerned about them. And so we are asking them to ask us to join with us and ask the government to fix it.
Meanwhile, it was perhaps a rebuke towards the PHA as Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville raised concerns about not being notified earlier about the fund exhaustion. And it's just another addition of public servants taking action against government for owed monies that they say are rightfully theirs. Jose Etienne, Eyewitness News.
Of course, gentlemen, welcome back. The Hot Topics panelists, Leslie Miller, Michael Turnquest, and Howard Johnson. We all saw this play out since earlier in the week. In fact, the president, Muriel Lightbourne, appeared on this show. You saw her a moment ago speaking about what's happening. These nurses, of course, you all know, they are agitating for overtime pay, time that's already been worked. They are agitating for, some of them, holiday pay, and just a whole number of things they say have gone unaddressed, or rather, well, not paid, and they are tired of the waiting game, and so therefore they're pulling their services from a public healthcare system that can ill afford to have any member missing. We know it's limping along as it is. Gentlemen, your thoughts? Jump in quickly.
My view, healthcare workers and of course, our teachers should always be paramount in terms of ensuring that, those two areas of our public sector, always taking, at the end of the day, the teachers have been neglected. We've been hearing over and over about the healthcare sector being, neglected. These are key areas that we should, as any government, I don't think this is a government thing because this is something that's been happening for decades. This is something that needs to be, not even at some point, it needs to be addressed immediately. That being teachers' wages, healthcare wages, nurses. I mean, it's in the law. It's in the law in terms of it's mandatory that you pay, I would say not vacation, but holiday pay. And I would see why the government isn't addressing this, swiftly, and making sure that our healthcare workers, which is the backbone of any country, and where we should be pouring our resources, should be taken care of immediately. I mean, I don't think this should even be up, for discussion or debate.
Howard, it seems you're muted.
Hello? Yeah,
yes.
This is something that's always terrible when situations like this come about, especially with the healthcare workers, such an important sector and segment of our society. It's unfortunate there are no clear winners. It's politics time now, so you see all of the political stuff seeping in to this and other matters. But there are no winners, because I spoke to several of my cousins and a couple of friends who are nurses. These are people who care about the sick, who are under their charge, right? They care about them. They want to take care of them. They want to do their jobs, and they do their jobs. At the end of the day, though, they work in a very, very, very cumbersome and very stringent environment. And so when those that I've spoken to who are agitating now and wanting their pay, they said to me, look, Howard, cuz I've already worked. I worked overtime. I worked this extra shift. I just want my money. I did what I was supposed to do, and now I want my compensation. You can't fault them for that on the one hand, and on the other hand, the fact that there's the walkout and there's the work stoppage means that proper health care is not being given to those that are sick. And so there are no clear winners, and I do hope, and others have said, that the government will look to bring a swift and quick resolution to this matter, because we cannot be without our critical service workers giving critical care to sick patients.
I think over the years we have been more than happy to support and given our full support, especially Shanique and the entire panel that we have here at this station, to support those nurses as well as the teachers.
Mm-hmm. And
we are still for them getting their money. If you work, pay them.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But I cannot, as a human being, go along with a situation where you're going to take your vital services away from sick persons, Bahamians and foreigners alike, at this juncture in our country. Because appreciate how many people in that, when I go to that hospital, you can't walk in those wards. There's so many people. I'm begging you all on behalf of the people of our country, please do not go on strike. Do not take your service away. It is too vital a service that we cannot afford for you to do what you say you may do. But take it, please go back to work. And we beg the government, sit with the nurses and sort it out, for Christ's sake. What's your problem?
You know, Leslie, I think for the public, and I think for the public at large, I think, you know, this is such critical service to us as Bahamians.
Yes.
I would be willing to strike on their behalf. Hey, you stay at work. Let me go out there and go make noise.
Let us agitate
Go get
for
it
you.
done.
Yeah.
Let us agitate.
I like that,
Let us
Mike.
do
I
what-
like
Pay them.
And I'm
But
asking
please
the
don't
government,
go on strike, please.
please, y'all, please. So
Lives at stake.
Yeah, man, please.
Lives at stake, man. Think about babies being born. You need the nurses.
You all are very,
Please,
very
give us a
right.
break.
And you're so
We're begging
right.
you.
I mean, we know the public healthcare system leaves a lot to be desired. There are a lot of hardworking men and women there, and we get it.
I
Listen,
love them all.
nobody wants to
All of
work
us love them.
and not be paid.
Yes.
No one. And then if you go the extra mile with putting in the overtime and not be
Yes.
and not be paid, it's
But why is it
vexing.
necessary for these things to happen to begin with?
I don't
Pay the people, man, for Christ's
pay
sake.
the people, but you made a great point, Leslie. And Michael, you mentioned the fact that these issues are not new. These issues have from time to time for decades just continued to ebb and flow, pop right up
Just do it.
all over again.
Get it done.
Make sure that they're paid because they're already obviously underpaid. Or not
Exactly.
when
That's why they go to
compared-
Miami.
When
That's why they
compared
go
to their
stateside in
counterparts
Canada.
elsewhere, they are underpaid when compared. But if you pay them right and give them their overtime and perhaps other amenities, they will stay in the
Yes.
system and work
We have-
give meticulous work
Exactly.
and for people and service to people.
In any corporation, you have persons on a HR department that is constantly reviewing, whether it be every year, you know, increments, things of that sort, and making sure that these things happen. You know, I'm pretty sure we have a Department of Labor. I don't know if these things are being constantly looked at every year to ensure that, hey, advising Parliament that we have increments that needs to be paid, and these things something that's these are written in black and white.
Yeah.
We should have whether it be a department ensuring that these things happen every year rather than we having to wait 4 or 5
Exactly.
years for individuals to come back begging for their money.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's unfair. And it's ungodly.
And Shanique, these people aren't enjoying themselves at work per se. These
No.
aren't bar singers. These aren't out at at a party scene serving the drinks and participating with the tourists.
They're
These
saving
people
lives.
in
They
the
are saving
hospital,
lives.
saving lives, but they are seeing people at their worst.
But
Through no fault, they're seeing people who are sick, who are dying, who are in the worst state of their lives, and that is traumatic. And it is stressful to deal with people under those conditions.
But how-
you have to pay these people.
You also have to look, and they're also putting their own lives in danger when they're
Yes.
dealing with it, be infectious
Yes.
diseases, things.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Every day
Exactly.
putting their life on the line.
Yeah.
When the managing director of the hospital authority have to say no overtime unless it's approved by me, how is she going to find the hours in the day
To approve all
with
around.
every department head? Come on, man. You can't do it. You and Hercules
Leslie.
and you and
You're right,
Jesus.
Leslie. You're right, Leslie.
That's why you hire good people, proficient people who's going to do their job, and let the people who you hire do their work.
Absolutely,
Please.
Leslie, incredible point. Because
Leave the egos, man.
Speaking of the medical professionals, and listen, guys, I just want to rest this out there for us to think about. They are on the front line of so much.
They are.
You all see what's taking shape in India right now. And we just pray that's a sort of an isolated incident that
Yes.
can be contained there.
That's right. That's
But
a new virus now.
A new virus.
Yeah, and dangerous.
Very, very dangerous.
Very
And
dangerous.
so again, let us take care of our healthcare professionals. Healthcare professionals, though, remember, much like police officers, the oath you have sworn to. You
Yes,
certainly cannot
exactly.
leave people who are already vulnerable and depending on
Exactly.
a system that needs all the help it can get, leave them on their own. Truly.
You know,
And so
Shanique-
everyone needs to come to the table and get it together.
Yes,
get
do
it
the right thing.
Treat them respectfully and
Do the
treat
right
them
thing,
right.
man.
And then you all show up
Do the
and
right
give it
thing.
your best during your work
Please.
shift. Yes, Michael?
Yes.
I just want us to remember, people. We always think of this big global world, right?
It
the
isn't.
world is we have connected the dots so I mean fine-tuned it that it's now become a little village. The world now
It is.
you can contact people and people are traveling so much and integrating. It isn't this big where as though people from India is not going to come to Bahamas.
No.
Overnight, people are getting to where they need to be. So let's stop thinking that, what's in India will never be in Bahamas. Oh no, we saw that during COVID.
We saw that with COVID. I tell you, a group was just, the good news, everyone is now trying to really pull back and be responsible, because there was a youth group, I think the Bahamas, let me not call a name, but a youth choir that was to go to India and perform just next week, and that was totally pulled back because of what's taking shape there. But there are other people who went to India last week and will be returning. Yeah, so a total village, a village.
And nothing you can do about it.
I tell you.
Nothing you can do about it.
But gentlemen, I want to shift gears, because we know the season we're in. And we know, of course, it wouldn't be a Week in Review Friday if we don't touch on politics for a moment in tonight's show. And so on the political front tonight, the Progressive Liberal Party is set to ratify the remaining of its slate of candidates. That is set for Sunday evening. We have not heard that. Okay, well, Leslie has the time. We have not heard that there's been postponement, because we know what the weather is going to look like this weekend. And then the Free National Movement was to have had its ratification exercise this evening. That's been postponed. No clear date has been set for when that will take place. However, though, it is a viral video reportedly of some very prominent and key FNMs who are now throwing their support behind Fred Mitchell of Fox Hill. Take a look at this, and then we'll come back and discuss.
I'm Denise Usher Dorset, and like Minister said, I have always been an FNM. I've always been an FNM, and it was hard for me to cross the line, but I did it tonight, and I feel happy doing it. Lisa, make sure.
I'm not going to be long. My name is Lisa Williams. I crossed the line last election by campaigning with the leader of the party, Philip Brave Davis, in Cat Island. I now have the opportunity of coming back home. Yeah, it is me. I live in the Eastwood area, and I will do my endeavor best with the other part of Fox Hill in Eastwood to promote everyone to go with the Minister Fred Mitchell.
And so, gentlemen, you all saw that. The big deal is because of one of the persons who spoke in that video and who she is and what she has represented that has everyone talking this evening. And in fact, really since the video was shared up to this evening. Let's just talk about that. You know, it's the political season. Everybody can be grandstanding and crossing and crisscrossing and all the rest of that. So people are now paying attention to that and talking.
You know, Shanique, I always say the PLPs, what I call it their marketing machine. They're like they make sure they bring everything to light. And I've known one of the individuals in that video, Denise Norsk. I've known her since I've came into politics, been a part of the party. I think we would call her one of the pillars of the FNM. And that's, I'll be honest, to see Denise doing what she did in that video, that's not a good look on the Free National Movement, and I think for some, I know a lot of people has that question mark in their mind, asking why, but she's been a strong FNM supporter for I can't even remember the years, but since I've been a part of the FNM, and it's not, I don't know if it still speaks to the division that still exists in the party. It seems as though leaders have not done the best job in terms of figuring out how to bring the party, the FNM back together like what it used to be under Ingram. But there still seems to be a lot of division that needs to be, I don't know when it's going to be addressed, but it needs to come to head if they want to go into this political I would say election coming up and be victorious.
Yeah, Shanique, and the thing about it is, this lady, she is not just a pillar, but also a staple, I mean, she's been around for a long, long time. When I went into the Free National Movement in the late 2000s and early 2010s, This lady was already a permanent fixture in the party, well known, always at events. These are those base level of supporters that you have that will show up for any and everything. And they will always 100% back the party. When your political organization starts eroding at its base, you are in trouble. Now, what's interesting is I've seen this, and also during the recent Golden Isles by-election, there were some Grand Bahama generals from the pre-national movement, known very well to myself and Michael Turnquest, who would have also switched over and gone to the PLP too, considered part of that menace faction. And what I see happening with them, that's happening with Ms. Denise and the others, is that it's not only being downplayed, but they're getting slapped up, and they're saying that, well, we don't need you, and take the others with you. You see, the math isn't mathing when you do silly things like this.
That's not politics. Politics is numbers.
Right. The math isn't mathing when you do dumb stuff like that. When you see base level supporters eroding, where are you going to make that support up from? When your support base, your strong level supporters are leaving your party, please tell me, where are you going to replace those supporters from? You can get them from the PLP, you can get them from the COI, you can get them from the silent majority that don't show up to nothing for no political party. You now have to work all that much harder, and I believe that the Free National Movement is playing catch up at this time, and they can ill afford to lose any support anywhere.
You know what kills me about what you see it all the time. For example, you can call, you hear voice notes of PLP supporters when they're angry, disgruntled. People like Terry, who's been a long time PLP supporter, and sometimes he gets upset, with his party, and he goes off the scale. But I think, the PLP does a good job. I'm pretty sure they tap him on the shoulder, say, hey, come see us, let us have a talk with you. And they always seem to keep this fighting. And sometimes it gets out, but before you know it, it's right back in. Everybody's back together again. It's like a family. It's like brothers and sisters when you have disputes. They cuss each other out, talk with each other, and then all of a sudden,
make back up.
You have the strength of them. You feel all the brothers stinging you like bumblebees. Like, oh, yeah. I thought, no, you thought wrong. Yeah, we fight, but don't come in this camp and border with one of us. That's the difference. That's the difference between the PLP and the FNM.
Of course, we will continue to watch this very interesting race. Leslie, I know you want to get in and give your opinion about that. You will have the first opportunity after the break. And then when we come back, guys, the PLP has some explaining to do and some catching up. In Grand Bahama this week, the Prime Minister had his gaffe on the island of Grand Bahama as it relates to electricity, and the row is still going on because now the Chamber of Commerce of Grand Bahama has spoken up. We'll talk about that after the break. Stay close.
We have to be mindful that as much as we want touristic development, what impacts the fisheries? Over-coastal development, destruction of mangroves, overzealousness of the industry. We have a new movement called do-it-yourself fishing. That is anglers who come to the Bahamas, they don't engage in hiring a guide. Because of this approach, you are going to have people who are going to exhaust the resources.
This is an industry that's preserved. It should be for Bahamian guides only. We have the DIYs coming in here, and they're destroying our flats.
We try not to overfish certain areas, so we'll fish a certain area and we'll back off for a while because we don't want the fish to feel too much pressure.
It's not just using the buzzwords of the environment and the ecology. The tourists can be educated that the more you support local ownership, people are doing it obviously the right way, the more the economic circulation in the communities.
I think the most critical thing is accountability, and that accountability by way of legislation, both the Act and regulations to govern fly fishing in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I look at conservation efforts and the regulation that I've seen to protect the industry that's in the developed world. All of those jurisdictions have implemented strong regulation to protect their fisheries. We are way behind, but we do have a movement and a consciousness. We know where we need to be. Those are our resources, and we have to make an exerted effort to protect it because that's the only gift that we have been given. And if we don't protect that, then we lose everything.
Building the lodge, I understood clearly the mission to continue what my father started. From this lodge, it has served as the headquarters. We finally got legislation passed in 2016, and it legitimized the guiding profession. We pushed to get the program established into BAMSI in the training of the next generation of guides, but it extends way beyond that.
We need more Bahamians in the industry who are doing the research to provide the information to the industry, that is to fishermen and to everybody who benefits from the resources.
We don't know the resources in this country. We grew up just hearing about sun, sand, and sea.
It is going to be through education and awareness, whether it's within our schools, whether it's in our communities, to conserve the environment, that is going to sustain the fly fishing industry.
Well, the future of fly fishing in the company, I think fly fishing is a very, very unique spot. I think it's going to get better because the guides are now being all certified. They're all getting proper knowledge of handling and how to run the whole system.
If you're a youngster and you want to get into this, it's a job like any other job. You got to live it. You got to love it.
Young entrepreneurs coming in, you want that kind of interest. You want that kind of drive and desire. You want to carry that. You want to become the product.
This segment is brought to you by EV Motors Fleet Sales Division. For 2026 commercial vehicles, call 821-2403 today.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. It's good to have you all tuned in. Of course, you all know it's Weekend Review Friday. We look at the biggest stories that had you talking, that got your attention, and also that were trending during the week. And so we are doing that right now. And before we get to Grand Bahama and the Prime Minister took his whole cabinet there, people saying, what y'all came to do exactly? We're gonna, Leslie, I know you wanted to weigh in on the fact that you heard Michael, you heard Howard talk about this very prominent FNM who says, listen, Fred Mitchell is our man now, and she's gonna support him along with a few others who in that video.
I think it's a deadly omen for someone of that caliber to walk away from the Free National Movement. And my question is it because of the current leadership that makes up the inner cadre of that organization? Is she disenchanted with the leadership of both the leader and the chairman of the party, and not of the hierarchy that they decided? In fact, it was not one of them, it was three of them. It was a gentleman too. And that says a lot for the manner in which Mr. Mitchell treats his constituents. Because obviously, if he didn't reach out to them, or if he wasn't in good social connection and political connection with them, there'd be no need for them to switch. But he is capable of bringing persons over from the other party to support him. And I keep telling all of the PLP candidates and candidates everywhere, you have to bring in the opposition people to vote for you, or you're not going to be able to maintain your victory at the polls. Because most politicians go in there with this attitude, I can take care of those who voted for me. But when that support slips among your own people, you got to have the alternative to turn to by treating those persons who did not vote for you in a friendly manner, in a manner that they appreciate that you're doing your best for them. And hence, that's how Mr. Mitchell was able to bring those opposition people now on his side. And I'm congratulating him on them for making the change, and I wish them luck.
Again, of course, here on the show, especially in this season, we pay attention to social media, what's trending, obviously the headlines everywhere, and also what members of parliament are doing, or even candidates at this point, what they're doing and what's happening. So listen, let's move along though. Speaking of what they're doing, what did the Prime Minister do this week in Grand Bahama? I'll tell you how he explains it. We all know the Prime Minister went there. One of the major announcements, or perhaps the major announcement, was the fact that a company by the name of Emera will take over power supply and generation on Grand Bahama to do several things. Bring and ease the cost of living for Grand Bahamians who have been screaming ouch as a result of the high electricity costs there. We know recently the Grand Bahama Power Company made a request for increase in fees. That had the Grand Bahama residents very, very angry. But yesterday, the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce and the President Dylan Noel says, no, we don't need no quick fix. Yeah, you may affect the price of electricity in the short term, but in the long term, how responsible and how good a manager are you of electricity? Look at how you all run BPL. Your thoughts, y'all? Your thoughts quickly before we get to this Rosewood story?
You know, Shanique, I think, and I read what the Prime Minister would have said, and you know, I know it from an infrastructure standpoint, right? I always say, and I know it from on being a part of BTC. You know, when you look at private entities, they look at what is the return on their investment when they're doing, they're putting infrastructure in certain areas. And you would see that whereas on some of our islands, you know, when BTC was government owned, the government took the initiative to make, I would say, we call it essential services available to everybody, no matter where you were. If it's only one person living 3 miles down this road, they gave you light, or they gave you internet services, which is internet services is a critical part of infrastructure today. And you know, and it makes sense because you know you have certain islands where they still don't have we call it essential services such as you know maybe lamp poles, and you have certain things like internet services because of course it's a very high capital cost to get internet services, you know, 5 miles down one road for one customer. They look at what is going to be the return on this investment to just giving services to this one customer. It might cost me $1 million to put, you know, 50 poles down this road and run internet and, you know, run wire there with labor and everything. So they said we've seen no return in the near future, so we're not going to do it. And I think this is the statement I think the Prime Minister is trying to get at. You know, hey, sometimes we have to bite the bullet to supplying infrastructure to certain communities because where there's only 3 persons living there or 5, you know, at the end of the day, we can't disenfranchise and not give them service.
Any citizen or anyone.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
So, you know, this is something that you have to really take a serious look at and ensure that, hey, when you're making these kind of decisions, you want to make sure you're looking at the holistic view, but making sure you're giving. We don't want to go back to the I would say the 70s where certain islands only had generators, you know, had to turn off at a certain night, turn them back on. You know, we're trying to move the Bahamas forward, and I think this is something that you really have to. It's a key thing that you have to look at when
So
you
Howard,
have private.
So Howard, what Michael is saying is that, listen, while the president of the chamber makes a great point, he is saying basically the prime minister's position is, I hear you, but the people of Grand Bahama need this relief and they need it now. And if you can make it happen, then they should proceed in this way?
Yeah, well, so Shanique, I maintain what I said a few nights ago on the show, and I maintain that I am not very comfortable with the government owning or being very heavily involved in these utilities, right? And Leslie might have the best purview out of all of us, having been the chairman of at least one of the utilities, to my knowledge, and Minister of Trade and Industry and stuff. So, but at the end of the day, for me, what I believe that the government should do, and the Prime Minister, they said in the statement that he used the words public necessity,
yes.
right?
Okay.
No, it was a necessity,
yes.
right? Okay, so when we're talking about necessity, right, you have to do these things out of necessity. I know that this is political season, and some of the decision making is going to be made in that particular vacuum. However, if it's a public necessity that the government take this over because you need these essential services to reach everybody, well, let's look at some of the other essential services, right? And this may merely be anecdotal, but okay, groceries are an essential services. We need to feed our people, right? Does the government own the grocery stores? No, they don't. So they regulate, you know, and that kind of stuff. And so I think it should be the same thing here. Let's regulate some of these entities. And also, if you're smart, when you're turning them over into private, the hands of private enterprise, you maintain a small shareholder equity position in these entities so that when profit sharing and profits are made, you can put them into the consolidated fund for the benefit of the Bahamian people.
Leslie, your thoughts?
You know, Emera is a major international conglomerate. It's a public corporation trading on the Canadian Stock Exchange. They've been doing pretty well in the islands of the Caribbean and elsewhere. Not a major player in the world, but in the region, they've been very successful in what they were doing. I would hope that if the Prime Minister follows through with this purchase, that the persons who are there now in top management would be allowed to continue to run the corporation in the manner in which it was being run. Now, I don't understand why the cost of electricity in Freeport hasn't gone down, because remember, recently they just put up a 100-acre farm for solar energy. Don't let's forget that. 100-acre that I believe is in full operation now. That alone should have allowed the cost of electricity to be decreased in a tangible way for the average person living in Grand Bahama, and especially in Freeport proper. I just don't understand it. I just believe on the Grand Bahama Port Authority got into the picture by saying, my brother, hold on here.
Yeah, you can't
We are
make no
the
decision.
managers of the Grand Bahama,
Yeah.
and Freeport in particular, and we were not notified of this. We got to sit around the table too, because you need our permission to purchase. It's a complicated situation. I think we need to tread very carefully on behalf of the people of Grand
Well,
Bahama.
remember now, Leslie, he did say between 60 and 90 days, so that's 3 months.
That is a very, very short window.
Yeah, I'm sure they will
Very
iron it
short
out
window.
because I'll tell you, the people of Grand Bahama were very happy. Residents who spoke with me on the headlines, quite happy to know that, listen, in that regard, there will be some easement. And
But
also later
I believe we
on,
must
the
put
groceries.
more pressure on the solar industry that is now in Grand Bahama, that sells a lot of energy to Emera and elsewhere. You know, some part of Grand Bahama is still without street lights. If you travel from Freeport to West anything, there's hardly any lights. On the Grand Bahama Port Authority or on Emera takes no responsibility for it.
Well, maybe.
So, you know,
listen, we'll see,
it's a
Leslie,
complicated situation. I just think you need
we will continue to follow
to follow up on it, but
Yeah.
be very careful in Emera not saying that we don't have to sell to you. And the Port Authority is saying you need our permission. What happens then if you have a stalemate?
We will continue to follow it, that's for sure.
Because
We
you can't
will stay on top of it.
expropriate a foreign company in the time that we are in with President Trump right around the corner, looking and
Well,
watching.
Leslie, let's look at this. I want to bring this to before we have to wrap up this evening. Rosewood in Exuma. You know, we've talked about that now for
Yeah,
quite
many
some
times.
time. I mean, and here's why it's back on the table. Last week, people I don't even know reached out to me to say, Shanique, can you please, one, keep Rosewood on your show in terms of mentioning it, because the residents of Staniel Key, Black Point, Farmers Key are wanting this project to happen. They say that it represents hope, new life in the economy of those keys that they desperately need. Now get this, you all, the residents also questioning the activity on Samsung Key over the past many years, which include the alleged buildings that have been erected on Samsung Key without the necessary permits or approvals from the Ministry of Works. And so they are questioning, why is it that this one developer who was standing in the way of Rosewood moving forward has been allowed to do those things, build buildings without the proper approvals, allegedly.
And now they want to stop this company.
And now, not wanting, they are stopping the company.
Why is that?
Who knows? Who knows exactly what's going on?
Why is the government allowing that to happen?
Why is the government allowing?
But it's so funny. Myself and Howard was just having the conversation, before the show started. There is so much illegal activity that happens throughout the islands. And at our detriment, we have a lot of water, a lot of keys. It's very hard to govern it all. But there are so many illegal activity, whether it be dredging, whether it be people building without
I'm bringing in
permits.
foreign workers too.
Yes.
It's so much happening that you need just a task force to just constantly doing the rounds,
Yes.
the keys, and there are so many keys, and some you can't. You got to get there by boats. And we have a lot of foreigners that come into the Bahamas. They know we are not policing everything that we shot. We're not capable of policing it. First of all,
No.
it's not that we don't want to. But I think it's so hard to police. We've seen in Exuma where dredging was happening on the beach. They were dredging out beaches that the government had no idea. I think Dr. Neely got
Because you give them too much
very
leeway.
fast to
Sometimes,
act on
They
it.
give them too much leeway.
sometimes we don't know, and there's and like Michael said, the manpower to go
Yeah.
and assign officers.
traverse
Howard,
these
jump in, Howard. But the manpower sometimes just not there. And when you have a developer like this acting as if he's God
He
and
is
the
God.
mayor of those keys,
He is God.
and it is pregnant. It stops progress.
Yeah, and see the developer, and I know Leslie was starting to touch on it. This particular developer was also pushing a certain nonprofit organization that's been against this project too.
Exactly.
It's very clear that they are in bed together and being
Yeah.
financed by this particular developer, because let's make no mistake about it, these two projects would have existed very close to each other.
Yes.
And Shanique, there's only one throne. There can only be one king, and they only want it to be one kingdom. So let's make no mistake about it. You have to now begin to question whether or not this effort against the Rosewood project was something that was totally above board and for the benefit of the environment and for the benefit of the Bahamian people primarily, or if that was something secondary to this developer wanting to maintain a monopolistic posture down there in the Exumas.
But
You know,
isn't it
I
interesting?
would
Sorry, go ahead.
I would advise DEP to put a grip on both of them. At the end of the day, it's up to the Department of Environmental Health
Yes.
to make sure that these projects happen. But I would, you got to be fair about these things, and you got to be fair with developers throughout the breadth of the Bahamas, and making sure that what you ask one to do, all must do.
Yes.
You know, it
Yes.
shouldn't be.
Yes.
It shouldn't be. You know, leaning more to this side. No, at the end of the day, the Department of Environmental Health has a job to do. They should go down there, assess, do the environmental impact study on both of them. Ask both of them to redo an environmental impact study, present it, and then at the end of the day, here's what we need you to put in place. Both projects will happen. We have no problem, but here are the stipulations in terms of what will happen, how it will happen.
But
And
if we are trying to create a well-ordered society in our country, why is it that the Ministry of Works and other departments would allow some unscrupulous developer to do as he please and build structures without the proper permits in hand? That's part of the problem. Because some people believe because they're in the Bahamas making an investment, they have ownership. They don't have any ownership. You ascribe to the laws and norms of our country. And what I don't understand, competition is supposed to breed competence. In this situation, they are incompetent by evading the law and don't want any competition to be in their way. So there only can be one king then. So long live the king. You know what you do? You get rid of the king.
That sounds like to
That's
me.
all you can do.
Sounds like, I'll tell you this, residents of Exuma, we will continue to bring this matter up because, and Dr. Neely, come on the show, let's talk, because Dr. Neely, perhaps you and your team must visit there and see what's going on. The residents of Staniel Key, Farmers Key, and Black Point are urging for this to happen so that they too can realize their own Bahamian dream by way of economic boosts and prosperity. And so we certainly will stay on this. I want to thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. Of course, we started the show on such a heavy note. Again, thoughts and prayers to the family. But Leslie Miller, I thank you. Michael Turnquest, Howard Johnson, thank each of you for being here this evening. And
Thank you for
always
having us.
always spot on and very, very engaging, very informed. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for tuning in all week long. It's certainly been a pleasure having you here, and I look forward to seeing you right back here on Monday evening. By the way, stay warm, you guys, this weekend.
Please drive careful.
Absolutely. Everybody have a blessed weekend.